What if the scariest weapon in an Academy Award-winning film was not actually a firearm at all? And you could order one online right now with a credit card and no background check whatsoever. Faster and easier than buying a kitchen knife in some states. This film walked away with 4 Oscars, including Best Picture, and its villain is still considered one of the most unsettling characters ever put on screen, largely because of the 3 weapons he carries. 2 of them are real, purchasable guns. The third one is going to change how you watch this movie forever, and we are saving it for last. Hello, and welcome back, everyone. I am your host, Ralph, and this is the show where we take the guns your favorite characters carry and tell you what they would genuinely cost, whether you could legally own one, and whether they are actually worth chasing down for your own collection, no matter how dark the film they came from happens to be. No Country for Old Men follows a welder named Llewellyn Moss, who stumbles onto $2 million in the aftermath of a drug deal gone wrong, and makes the fateful decision to keep it. What follows is a slow, dread-soaked chase across the Texas borderlands, as a small-town sheriff tries to stay one step ahead of the inevitable, and a hitman named Anton Chigurh tracks the money down with a calm, almost philosophical patience that makes him feel less like a movie villain and more like a force of nature moving through the story on its own timeline. Tommy Lee Jones plays Sheriff Ed Tom Bell, whose weary narration bookends the film and gives it its title, a lawman who increasingly feels like he no longer understands the violence he is supposed to be policing. Directed by the Coen brothers and starring Josh Brolin, Javier Bardem, and Tommy Lee Jones, the film swept the Academy Awards, taking home Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Supporting Actor for Bardem's performance. An unusually complete sweep for a film this quiet, this patient, and this unhurried by modern blockbuster standards. Chigurh barely raises his voice through the entire runtime, and that restraint is exactly what makes his weapons do so much of the storytelling for him, each one telling you something different about how he sees the people he is about to kill. Why Chigurh carries what he carries. It is worth pausing on why the filmmakers gave this particular character 3 completely different tools instead of just one signature weapon, the way most screen villains typically get handed by a costume department in a hurry. The TEC-9 is his practical option. Fast, disposable, exactly what a professional would keep on hand for a job that goes sideways in close quarters. The suppressed shotgun is his methodical option, used when he has time to plan and wants total control over the outcome without alerting anyone nearby. But the captive bolt pistol is different from both of those. And that is the point. It is not a weapon built to threaten or intimidate. It is a tool built for a task that requires 0 hesitation and 0 emotional involvement. And handing it to a human antagonist rather than a professional killer with a normal gun says everything about how Chigurh actually views the people he kills. Less like victims and more like livestock, waiting for a foregone conclusion, neither of them get to negotiate. That is a deliberate, unsettling piece of character writing hiding inside a prop choice, and it is exactly the kind of detail this channel exists to dig up. Chigurh's pistol, the Tech-9. Alongside his more unusual tools, Chigurh also carries a fairly conventional semi-automatic pistol for close-range work. A Tech-9, a blocky, all-metal handgun that became instantly recognizable through the 80s and 90s for its distinctive shape and open, vented barrel shroud, a silhouette so unusual that it barely needs a close-up to be identified by anyone who grew up watching crime films from that era. Its lineage actually starts even earlier and stranger than most people realize. The original design was briefly sold as a genuine select fire submachine gun, before federal regulators forced the manufacturer to redesign it into a closed bolt, semi-automatic only civilian pistol, at which point it picked up the TEC-9 name. It is a simple blowback design, easy to manufacture, easy to strip down, and it built a genuinely controversial reputation over the following decade, enough that it was named directly in the 1994 federal assault weapons ban, one of the few pistols specific enough to be called out by name in the legislation, rather than banned by feature alone, a level of legislative attention very few handguns in American history have ever received. That ban only stopped new manufacture of that exact configuration. Existing pistols already in circulation remained legal to own, and the original manufacturer responded by releasing a compliant version without the threaded barrel and shroud, sold under the name AB-10. Original TEC-9 pattern pistols today typically trade somewhere between $350 and $550, depending on condition and configuration, while the compliant AB-10 pattern often runs a bit lower, frequently found for $300 to $500 on the used market. Values on both have actually been climbing recently as collectors chase down surviving examples of a gun that is genuinely a small footnote in American legislative history, which is a fairly unusual thing to say about a pistol most people only recognize from crime movies. A standard background check is all that stands between you and either version. No special license, no waiting period beyond the ordinary process. Verdict: the most conventional item on this list, genuinely affordable. And a fascinating piece of firearms legal history if you are the kind of collector who likes owning a small piece of legislative trivia along with your gun. Something most owners of one of these probably never even think about while it sits in the safe. Intermission. Quick pause before we get to the shotgun and the reveal you have been waiting for since the hook of this video. If you have not already, drop a comment, letting me know if you already knew this film's biggest weapon was not legally a firearm at all. Before clicking on this video, I am genuinely curious how many of you caught that going in, versus how many of you are about to be surprised right along with everyone else. Chigurh's shotgun, the Suppressed Remington, 1187. Chigurh's other conventional weapon is a Remington 1187, a semi-automatic 12-gauge shotgun fitted with an enormous, deliberately crude-looking suppressor, used throughout the film both to eliminate targets quietly and, memorably, to blow door locks apart without waking an entire building. The production specifically chose a gas-operated shotgun for this build, since that action cycles more smoothly under a suppressor than an inertia-driven design, where the added back pressure from a suppressor can actually interfere with reliable cycling. The results on screen are genuinely one of the more accurate depictions of what a suppressed shotgun actually sounds like, a sharp, contained crack, rather than the silent puff most films default to. If you remember our Sicario episode on the Mark 23, this is the same underlying physics at work, a suppressor reducing the blast without ever fully eliminating it. The 1187 itself has become harder to find new in recent years, as Remington's production has shifted around through ownership changes, but used examples circulate easily through the secondary market, typically running somewhere between $600 and $900 depending on condition and barrel length. The suppressor is the real project here, and by now you already know the drill from our Breaking Bad episode. A genuine sound suppressor requires an ATF Form 4, a $200 tax stamp, a clean background check, and typically several months of waiting before it legally arrives in your hands. Suppressors themselves usually run anywhere from $500 to $1,500 depending on the brand and caliber rating, on top of that tax stamp and weight, and a shotgun rated can specifically built to handle 12-gauge pressure tends to sit toward the higher end of that range compared to a typical rifle or pistol suppressor. Verdict: a genuinely achievable build if you already have the patience for NFA paperwork, and one of the more realistic suppressor portrayals we have covered on this channel so far. Proof that Hollywood can get this right when a production actually cares about the details. The one that isn't even a gun, the captive bolt pistol. And now, finally, the weapon this entire video was built around. Chigurh's signature tool, the one used in the film's most quietly disturbing scenes, is a captive bolt pistol, a real, genuinely existing device, but not one designed to kill people at all. The device itself dates back to 1903, invented by a slaughterhouse director in Germany looking for a faster, more humane alternative to the tools being used at the time, and variations of his original design are still in daily use around the world today. In the real world, this exact tool is used in slaughterhouses and on farms to humanely stun livestock before processing. The bolt strikes with enough concussive force to cause instant unconsciousness, then a spring immediately retracts the bolt back into the housing. It never actually leaves the device, which is the entire reason it is called a captive bolt in the first place, a small but important mechanical distinction that separates it entirely from a conventional gun. Here's the detail that makes this whole episode worth making. Under federal law, a firearm is specifically defined as a device that expels a projectile through the force of an explosive. A captive bolt pistol does neither of those things properly. The bolt is driven by compressed air rather than an explosive charge, and it never leaves the gun to begin with, staying tethered inside the housing on every single use. That combination means it simply does not meet the legal definition of a firearm at all, anywhere in the country, regardless of state. No background check, no FFL transfer, no waiting period. In most cases, you can order one directly from an agricultural supply company, the same way you would order any other piece of farm equipment, and it typically arrives at your front door within days rather than the months-long process every other item on this list requires. Basic pneumatic models typically sell for somewhere between $250 and $600, with heavier-duty professional units built for larger animals climbing toward $1,200 to $1,500. But even the top end of that range is less regulation than a standard hunting rifle requires, and the entry-level models cost less than either handgun we just covered on this list. There are actually a few different subtypes as well. Some models are designed to fully penetrate, similar to what we see in the film, while others are non-penetrating, delivering a concussive blow without breaking the skull, a distinction that matters a great deal in agricultural use, but would have made for a very different, far less memorable movie villain. Verdict: the cheapest, least regulated, easiest to acquire item on this entire episode, and also, by a wide margin, the most unsettling one. Precisely because almost nobody watching this film has any idea just how accessible it actually is, sitting quietly on farm supply websites while everyone assumes it must be some kind of restricted underworld weapon. So there is Anton Chigurh's real-world arsenal. One gun with a genuine place in American firearms legislation, one shotgun that only takes patience and paperwork to build exactly as shown, and one device that technically is not a gun at all under the law, despite being the single most disturbing weapon in the entire film, and arguably the most disturbing prop this channel has ever covered from any movie. It is a genuinely rare thing for a movie prop breakdown to end with a legal loophole rather than a price tag, but that is exactly the kind of detail this channel was built to dig up. If there is another villain's loadout you want priced out and broken down the same way, drop it in the comments. I read every single one of them. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you want these breakdowns as they come out, and share this with anyone who has seen this film and had absolutely no idea that the last one was even real. They will not believe you until they watch it for themselves. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.